Number 16 from Feuillard's daily exercises is one of the classic exercises we use to practice big long distance shifting, connecting the lower to the upper positions. Now, if you think, oh my God, but I haven't got that book, fret not. Look right below in the description. I'm giving you the link to the PDF, and it is on page 19 of the book. So over this slightly hardcore 25 minutes practice with me, we are going to do a deep dive into this exercise, talk about everything that's important, what we're trying to achieve, put in some preliminary exercises, and I promise you that by the end of it, your shifting will be in much better shape. So grab your cello and let's go. While you're all busy digging out your Feuillard music, I'm just going to say a quick hello to anyone who is new to my channel. My name is Julia Morneweg, and here we talk about absolutely all things cello and how to play the cello well. If you would like to find out more about me, my concerts, how to have lessons with me, or participate in my online workshops, do head to my website www.juliamorneweg.com or follow me on Instagram at cello_Julia. And of course, I hope that you will enjoy my content, and if you do, please make sure you smash that like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you want to help me make more of this content going forward, you can now also leave me a little tip via the coffee link in the description. So I think we are ready for some big shifting. In this practice session, we have got three main objectives. Firstly, we want to find and establish the correct arm level for the left arm to make sure that we can connect the lower position and the upper positions smoothly, really just needing to open and close our elbow. Secondly, we are going to focus quite heavily on the quality of the movement. So everything should be smooth, it should be light, and nothing should ever feel or sound jagged. The third objective, and I warn you right now that this is the one you're going to probably struggle with most, is we are going to place a disproportionate amount of focus on the bow. Because if our bowing is not absolutely on point and controlled, none of the shifting is ever going to work. So in order to learn all of these principles, we are going to focus quite heavily on the first variation in Feuillard number 16. So right, the very first exercise right at the top, because once we have established all the ground rules there, then all the other ones will come to you much more easily afterwards. Okay, so the first thing we are going to practice might seem really counterintuitive, really unorthodox to you, but I'm not actually going to dive straight into playing the exercise. But the first thing we're going to do is play the upper groups of 4 notes by themselves. So we are just going to start with, you don't need to slur them yet, because the aim of the game here is, first of all, to find the correct arm balance, the level the arm needs to be at in order to really feel secure in the upper positions. So here actually one question we have to address straight away is where am I going to put my thumb? I think for the first one, my hand is not on this cello not big enough to keep it behind the fingerboard, but I keep it back straight out like that, basically as a counterweight. So the same still works for me on the next one. Now the thumb has to come up for the next one. And the last one. So a few things we want to pick up on here straight away. We have got 3 different hand configurations, right? Finger spacing configurations as we go through. So we have got 2 which are wide positions, so tone and turn, the first one and the last one. And then we have got one with semitone between 2 and 3, and one with semitone between 1 and 2. So, and quick word about the placement of the thumb. So make sure that that is not all the way back or way too close. You always want it to be sort of roughly a tone behind the first finger. So let's do that now one more time. So we're just going to play the upper groups alone. We can also start slurring them if you like, 2s or 4s or whatever you prefer. Now, why are we starting? You're probably thinking by now, why are we starting with this? Because there's a very simple principle. Whenever you have to shift into the higher positions, always, first of all, establish where it is you are trying to get to. Yeah, so once we already know what the perfect arm level is, then it's actually from there on very, very easy to figure out how to get there. Usually where the mistake happens is that we kind of start here and then sort of, you know, slither up there and without actually knowing where the arm has to be. So we have done that. So now you can see that in order to be, if I want to feel balanced up there, you can see my arm is reasonably high, yeah, and it never confuse out with high, by the way, yeah. So we're not doing that. We're never lifting the shoulder. It's just elbow kicks out to the side, and that's it, yeah. So elbow is out to the side. Never ever lift the shoulder. Shoulder blades are still pulling down. Everything here is really heavy, but the elbow is all the way out to give me the longest possible lever, and as usual, have a quick check that you can park your bow there. Yeah, so now we have established that. Now the first thing we do is we trace that all the way back, but we keep our arm out. So we are not going to go back here, because once we start connecting, the one thing we can't be doing while we're shifting is having to make a level adjustment, because that's going to throw us off. Yeah. So now I trace back, and now I'm going to first of all do a slight skeleton version of Feuillard 16 before we try and play the real thing. So now we're just going to establish the hand frame in both positions. So just the lowest finger and the highest finger. So in that exercise, I already want to drill down into my fundamental principles here, yeah? So what am I looking for? So I have now got an arm level, which allows me to essentially only open and close from the elbow, like so. Yeah, and when I'm shifting upwards, that is heavily aided by gravity. What I'm not doing is pushing. You never push. You never push. You only release. So let's just try that once more on that exercise. So when we're shifting upwards, we only do a soft release from the elbow, 0 push. Release. Now that obviously also means that my finger pressure has got to be very, very light in this exercise, yeah? So 0 squeeze. I am maybe putting the string down 80-85%, no more than that. So release. So if while you're moving, you're hearing anything like that, then the finger pressure is way too high, yeah? So arm out, it actually also takes a little bit of sort of pressure out of the finger. It's just natural weight. Now, soft release. On the way back down, soft pull. Very soft pull. So, and now we're getting to the point that I warned you will find tricky, and that is the bow. Now, how controlled or otherwise your shift is going to be depends on one thing and one thing only, really, and that is how smooth and controlled your bow is at that point. Now, at the moment, while we're doing the shorter slurs, basically we are always changing bow on the shift. Now, if you want your shift to be smooth and controlled, the bow change has got to be like a Tai Chi movement. It's got to be so slow and so controlled. So focus. Now, I now give you permission to play as many wrong notes as you like. The only thing that I'm after is perfect bow changes. I start preparing for the change really early. Take a look. Prepare for the change. And look how slowly I'm going around the corner. Slowly. So the trick here is 100% focus has got to be on the bow. And that's why I'm saying I don't care how many shifts you miss. The truth, however, is if you are properly focusing on your bow, your shifts are in reality going to actually get a lot more secure. So don't worry about that. Yeah, so focus on doing the perfect bow change. Slowly around the corner. The left hand will always take its cue from the bow. So if we're doing a panicky, jerky bow change, that's what your shift is going to be like. Okay, so now we have practiced the skeleton version. Now let's go properly into number 1, and we are first of all going to do it in groups of 4. Yeah, so slow bow change, remember? So I'm just stopping there now to give you another little tip, and that is, so my arm is already out here. You see, the arm never ever comes from here, because you see, if I'm having to make that emergency adjustment, you see I have 2 conflicting trajectories, and immediately as I'm moving, that gets thrown off and the shift is gone. Yeah, so I'm here. Now, when it's time for the actual shift, because in the first variation we're shifting on the first finger, right? So on the same finger. So it feels a little bit like there is a, you know, when you're in the sea and suddenly from behind there's a wave coming and it just sort of lifts you up and just sort of transports you towards the shore, yeah? And that's the same here. It's, imagine there's almost that little impulse coming from sort of the back of the shoulder, little wave coming, you see? And go. And so that's why I don't need any extra push in the arm, because you have that wave. Let's try the whole thing now. Slow bow change, wave coming. Now, slow return. We think about the wave and the bow change early, and then they happen together. Slow, soft return. The bow never stops, you see? Even bow speed. Now going back. Wave. Always pull in the bow. Never stall, so always go. Pull the bow and push. Maintain the sideways movement. Doing the falls first of all, because it really gives me, you know, enough, you know, room to really listen to intonation, you know, to make sure that the bow is even, because if you can't do a perfectly even bow yet on 4, don't even think about doing 8 yet. Yeah, so in order to get from 4 to 8, what we need to have established is perfectly stable, even bowing slowly around the corners without any stalling in there. Good arm level and very, very light contact on the string. So let's try him. So now obviously the shift is happening halfway through the bow. Yeah. What's important here is, as you can see, take a look. My bow stays completely unperturbed by what's happening in the left hand. Yeah. The left hand has to ride the bow essentially. Yeah. So what you can't have is any kind of lifting in the bow or any kind of stopping or anything, because then the left hand doesn't have any security. Yeah, the bow's job is to make the left hand feel safe always. So imagine that, I've said this many times, imagine that the left hand is the puppet and the bow is what's pulling the left hand up there. So pull. Always make sure you leave a little bit of bow here for the bow change. Yeah, so you have to factor that into your bow distribution, so don't get the last nose right up until the end. You have to leave room to go comfortably around the corner. So now those are pretty much all the main principles that are important in this particular exercise. Now let's have a quick survey of the other ones, because for you to continue and vary your practice, you will just want to know what is important here. And the main variations are obviously that the finger combinations are changing, which means we have slightly different types of shifts in different groups. So for instance, in number 2, we are not shifting on the same finger. We are going from the higher finger to the first finger, which is a slightly different mechanism, yeah? Because you're not shifting on your old finger, you've got the new finger essentially pushing the old finger away. So let's try that once. Still, the wave remains the same. Different challenge. So you've got you're finishing on the first finger onto the second one, yeah, so which means you're going to be shifting on the old finger on the first finger. So and so on. Now next one, number 3. So now we're coming off the fourth finger. What's important in all of these here is one more thing to mention: the fingers always have to remain above the string at all times. Never ever pull them out to the side. Yeah, there is just no time for that. So everything has to stay right above the string in falling distance. So yeah, and then sort of with these thirds you get a few different variations. So number 4 is quite interesting, because here we're going from the first finger to the second finger, which means you will be shifting on the old finger on the first finger. So you can really practice that with a slow slide. And make the middle the sort of hidden note. Make that audible. Yeah. So so those are really the main permutations. Also keep in mind, obviously, that what will change depending on what note combination is the actual interval. Yeah. So so for instance, some of the more tricky ones, like in number 4, for instance, the shifting interval here is well, actually the shifting interval, the arm is going up by a 6th, but what you're hearing is a 7th, which is an altogether trickier interval. So major and minor. So that's something you just, again, isolate that interval and just do it very, very slowly with a slow slide. And so on and so forth. And then, of course, right at the bottom, it gives you a couple more sort of bits of practice inspiration. One is to change the rhythm into things like... Yeah, and the other one is to go through different keys. So if, let's say, you were to put this into G major, all the Fs along the way would become F sharps. So remains the same. Now and so on and so forth. But don't really go there until, don't really even move on, I would say, from number one until that has been absolutely mastered and all the sort of basics are really solidly in place. But so yeah, these are just a few tips for really how to develop your practice further. But first of all, I would encourage you to repeat the main bulk of today's practice with me, where we really take the first one apart over and over and over until that is absolutely in the system. Now, happy shifting, happy practicing. I hope you enjoyed this session and found it useful, and I look forward to seeing you for more soon.